Welcome to Untold Physio Stories, a podcast that informs and educates by connecting you to rehab industry leaders who share their candid successes and failures in business and practice.
This episode of Untold Physio Stories is sponsored by Edge Mobility System. Edge Mobility System is your online site for everything a PT, OT, DC, MT, ATC, or fitness pro would need. Get certified in blood flow restriction therapy or training online. Check out our full modern manual therapy seminars, ISTM toolkit, Edge suspension trainer, portable tables, and more. Untold Physio Stories listeners can save 10% by going to edgemobsys.com. That's EDGEMOB sys.com/untold to save 10% off their first purchase.
Edge Health and Tech Solutions. We do websites that work for you and give you an edge over the competition. Did you know that you have less than 10 seconds to capture someone's interest in your website before they click away? How about the fact that most people are accessing your website from their phone? Save thousands and get a fully mobile, appealing, and SEO-optimized website linked to your social media, email list, and Google My Business. All for one low price and no monthly fees. Why not keep doing what you do best in your business and allow us to handle the tech side? Let's get started. Find us at edgehealthandtech.com.
Welcome back to Untold Physio Stories. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. E, with the Eclectic Approach, Modern Rehab Mastery, Edge Health and Tech Solutions, and Edge Mobility System. My co-hosts, Dr. Dana Palmer and Dr. Andrew Rothschild, are doing their thing today. With me today is Dr. Alex Kirbach, and he's got a story for us. Welcome to the podcast, Alex.
Hey, Dr. E, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So you can just give a quick intro, say, what kind of practice you have, et cetera, how to find you, and then go ahead with your story.
Yeah. So I'm from Seattle, Washington, where everything got started during this COVID-19 pandemic. I recently started my own out-of-network physical therapy practice, offering concierge and telehealth services. So, going to your home or your office, sports complex, specializing in active individuals, particularly interested in baseball athletes. Website is in the works, but once it's up and running, it'll be at kirbachphysicaltherapy.com. Instagram is Kirbach Physical Therapy, and also our Facebook page, Kirbach Physical Therapy. So stay tuned for more posts there.
All right. So what do you have for us today?
So I had a very interesting case about a year and a half or so, maybe, with a patient who came in, and he was actually a former patient of mine, and I saw him pop on my schedule for a new condition, and first got my interest peaked when all of a sudden he canceled at least one or two of his evals, and one of the cancellation notes was he had to go to the ER. And I'm like, whoa, what's going on there? I hope he's all right. And turns out it was he had taken 2 trips to the ER in the last month because of neck pain, kind of upper neck, like right below the head, C1. And so he was coming to me for that. And pretty quickly I got the idea that this was not something musculoskeletal. Pretty quick. And so with him, like, it was, no range of motion. I got a new definition of tone, like just one side of his left side of his neck, that those muscles were just locked in on fire. Other side, normal. And, things, pain medication, ice weren't helping. And so I definitely had some big concerns, because what I had gathered, he had not had any imaging done of his neck in 2 ER visits. They had imaged a ton of his brain stuff, so they had ruled out brain tumors, like great, but they wouldn't image his neck. And so that's kind of why he was coming to see me, is his insurance company wouldn't authorize any imaging of his neck until he had been to a physical therapist. And so that's what he was kind of coming to me for. And so my biggest concerns for him were kind of some of the red flag items, and so when I told him like, hey, I don't think this is something that we can help you with, I think it might be something else. He asked me, he's like, oh, well, what do you think? And, especially because he was a former patient, we had already had established that trust. I was pretty honest with him, and it was like, well, I think you need to, your doctor who sent you over, like, I think you need to ask them and have them tell you in no uncertain terms why this wouldn't be cancer. And that was my biggest concern for him. And I told him I would see him one more time before his imaging, just to see if we could find something to manage his pain. Because I couldn't even get him on the table on the eval. It got me like super flustered, actually, to be honest. And so I told him I'll see you one more time, and just to see if we can help you manage your pain until you can get that imaging done. He's like, okay, that sounds fine. Called his doc to report my findings, concerns. Saw him that second visit, and we actually found a way to get him onto the table, which was to bring the bed up to him, right? Rather than him down to the table, bring the table to him, bring the table down. And that was light and day. It was really interesting to see how much that changed his pain. All of a sudden, take off the weight, his pain dropped 80% probably. And so he's the only person I make sure to tell, like, I've never told anybody this ever, but I want you to lie in bed until you get your imaging done. Like, be on bed rest. Don't get up as much as possible. And he did. And he contacted me later how thankful he was for that, actually, because he went and got those imagings done, and it turned out he had a tumor that had fractured his C1 vertebrae.
That's I remember you telling a story online, and I was thinking, I don't remember how he fractured his C1. I don't remember there being a trauma, but yeah, that's it certainly sounds like instability. That's like the classic signs of instability with the extreme hypomobility and weight bearing, and then more mobility and non-weight bearing, right? Even though it doesn't always present like that. Anytime I've seen instability, that tone is the only thing that's basically keeping their head on their neck.
Yeah, really. And I think I got so flustered during that eval, because like trying to get him on the table was like a no-go. And I'm a relatively new therapist. I graduated in 2015, so I had never seen a case like this before. Definitely got me flustered. So I didn't do any like the upper ligament stability testing, really. Probably should have, looking back on it. But it was very interesting, and it even made the rounds kind of within the medical community a little bit here. The job I was at was, my director was telling me, actually, the person above him within the company is a retired cardiac doctor, I believe, or something like that, and how he heard about the story about how I had recognized this as cancer, and his doctors were like, how did your physical therapist like call cancer? Like, he had no red flags in terms of like no weight loss, no other, risk factors, no personal history of cancer, none of that. It was just his clinical presentation that I went off of, really. And they were all like shocked. They're like, they couldn't understand how his physical therapist had recognized this. And to me, it seemed pretty easy. I don't know.
Right. Well, that's because they don't, I mean, I think an ortho probably would have figured that out.
I think the person who had referred him was a physiatrist. So
yeah.
physical medicine.
Right. Well, we all see the forest for the trees, right? But we don't, if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. But we definitely know when we can't treat someone, whether it's cancer or something like instability for no other reason. And yeah, great job with that. What did you end up having done?
So that was also kind of interesting to get a little peek into the process of like a cancer diagnosis, because they found this tumor, right, but they can't say it's cancer yet until they investigate. It's just a tumor, but they did a full body scan and found tumors like all over. It was in the lymph nodes in his neck, like I think it was in his bladder or something like that. Also, like, lumbar spine and left pelvis. So it was all over. And so it was interesting how long it took him to actually go from diagnosis of tumor to cancer. It took over a month to really get that diagnosis. And they wouldn't do things like any surgery or anything until they had his diagnosis. And so it really delayed his treatment options and things like that until he got his diagnosis. And it turned out to be a form of lung cancer. And what he ended up having was, I think it was a wire mesh put in kind of that upper cervical, and then they fused the occiput down to C4.
Wow.
Yep. And then he followed up in a couple months later. He followed up with me afterwards for some, post-op recovery. And it was interesting to see just how weak he had gotten from he couldn't do much physically, especially for that month or whatever he was waiting for the surgery. And so he got very deconditioned, very weak.
Oh, because he was just in bed rest.
My guess is, it's probably bed rest, with that level of instability.
Right. Dr. Kirbach, saving lives in the Washington area. Good job with that.
Thanks.
All right. So just remind people again where they can find you and maybe who did your website.
Yeah, so website is still in progress of being built, thanks to Dr. E and Dana Palmer. But when it's up and running, it will be at kirbachphysicaltherapy.com. Currently on Instagram at Kirbach Physical Therapy, and on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page at Kirbach Physical Therapy as well.
Awesome. And Dr. Dana's and I's web solutions are at Edge Health and Tech Solutions. So that's edgehealthandtech.com. We make your website work for you. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast, Alex. Great story. Good differential diagnosis, and all around amazing job.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.
Well, you can find me, Dr. E, at Modern Rehab Mastery. That's our new online mentoring program. It includes modern manual therapy, modern patient education, and modern strength training. It's 3 months with 3 mentors, so 1 month with each mentor, 4 weeks, tons of modules, lots of CEUs, learn at your own pace for a month, then move on. So go beyond the seminar. You also get chat room with your mentees and mentors and live Q&As every week. Check out all my products, Edge Mobility System. We have the new Edge ISTM toolbox that includes the Edge Mobility Star and the OG Edge Mobility tool, our Edge Restriction System BFR cuffs. That's part of Dr. Kyle Coffey's Modern Strength Training BFR certificate. I hope to see you at a live eclectic approach course soon. That's Modern Manual Therapy in US, Canada, and South America. And make sure to rate Untold Physio Stories 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. You could also subscribe on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. And as always, you guys have an awesome day.